Fertility begins with nourishment, including how we feed and support the body from within. Every vitamin, minerals, and nutrients plays a role in creating the conditions a new life for growth. The more efficient way to get a wide spectrum of fertility boosting nutrient is through our diet. But with so much mixed advice, it's very hard to know what your body truly needs. And that's why we're so glad to chat on IG Live today with Dr. Laura Erlich. Dr. Erlich is a reproductive health specialist who implements traditional Chinese medicine into her practice. During this live, we are going to discuss how berries can enhance your chance of conception, plus which berry she loves the most, various herbs, teas for fertility, other foods to add to your grocery list, and so much more. Here you are. Hi, Laura.
Hi.
How are you? Thank you so much for
I'm
joining us.
Yeah, my pleasure. Nice to see you.
Nice to see
How
you.
are you?
Tell us a little bit about yourself, like how you became a reproductive health specialist.
Oh, sure. Gosh, how long is this live? Um, I've been
I love
working
it.
in the reproductive health space. I like to jokingly now say since the turn of the century, but it is true, since the 90s. I started my practice as a pre and postnatal massage therapist and a birth doula. And then a few years into that practice, I decided to go to Chinese medicine school, and I got my master's in traditional Chinese medicine and licensed in acupuncture there, and have since then been practicing as a TCM fertility specialist, essentially. Um, so that's been my kind of last 20 plus years now in practice as a TCM acupuncturist. And I also am an educator. I do a lot of professional education within my field. I teach in the doctoral program for women's health at Yosan University. And about 10 years ago, I published a book called Future Fertility, which is really kind of the bringing together of the TCM concepts around nutrition and health with the Western medical diagnosis so that we can see that those two
Mhm.
things are easily kind of transposed back and forth. And from my perspective in my practice, that's what helps people the most is when they understand where to use holistic health, where to use
Mhm.
Western medicine, and how to use those two things to benefit themselves the most.
I love it. I love it because I always feel there's a gap. People don't. They often choose either or, but you can really benefit from both. So this is like so
Yes.
amazing.
Yeah. Both is
You
where
are
it's at, I think.
Yeah, awesome. You are also the founder of Mother Nurture Wellness, which I love this name.
Thank
How
you.
did you choose this play on words, and then like what does it nurturing means to you?
Mother Nurture Wellness came out of like a lot of, trial and error and back and forth trying to figure out what is a name that kind of encompasses how I practice. And it means a few different things to me. I mean, um Mother Nurture is in a way the role that I think I play in a lot of my patients' lives, meaning that we all need mothering and we all need nurturing. And most women in our culture are giving that and not receiving it. And in particular, when it comes to trying to conceive and to carry a child, I think women
Mhm.
need nurturing and they need space to let themselves just relax, and that it's actually from that place of feeling nurtured that our nervous systems can heal, and from a healed nervous system we can be well. So it's sort of like those things all go together, that if you feel cared for and nurtured, mothered, it doesn't have to be by your own mother, but in your life, if you feel like you're cared for and loved, then your nervous system can be regulated in a way that your body is able to heal itself.
And it also, I feel like it's also passed on generations. It will benefit
Well,
the future generations. So it's like just so many benefits.
yes, the greatest gift anyone can give their future child is their own healed nervous system. I believe that is 100% true.
Your own
Yeah.
your nervous system. I love it.
Yeah.
Not just your own like a healthy nervous system, but everyone needs some healing. I love it. Your
Healed
own
nervous
healed
systems.
nervous
We've
system.
all had trauma, right? We all bring all that forward and when we work to heal it. Yeah.
And then you
better for our
practice
kiddos.
tradition, yeah. And then you practice traditional Chinese medicine. I think most people know what it is, but for those who don't know, what is it like, and how did you know that these practices could be beneficial for people who are trying to conceive?
Sure. So traditional Chinese medicine encompasses the full medical system that is Chinese Chinese medicine, which means there are multiple pillars of Chinese medicine. Acupuncture is just one of those. Herbal medicine is another. Nutrition is another. Lifestyle. So all of the kind of holistic practices, including things like meditation, spiritual practice, all of that falls under the umbrella of traditional Chinese medicine. And so there are practitioners who specialize in herbs, who specialize in acupuncture, who do a combination. Some people who only do Qigong, for example. All of that, though, falls under the umbrella of TCM. And the way, it's interesting. I was just talking to a group of my students about this morning because one of my great struggles in life is the way the wellness industry has gone crazy, and that from my perspective as someone who's been working in wellness and complementary medicine my whole career, it works best when it's complementing and working alongside what we know are true scientific principles. And when we start undermining scientific principles, we ultimately undermine ourselves. And I don't think that in general, TCM practitioners share those kinds of pseudoscientific beliefs that have really undermined the wellness industry, though some do. Certainly, my field is not full of only people who don't think that way. Um, but I think that one of the things that we can say about Chinese medicine is that we have so much evidence that it works. We have thousands and thousands of years of case histories of, doctors providing their historical data of herbal medicine, and its benefits and effects. And now, as time has gone on, we have scientific proof of many of these things. I just saw data this week alone saying that acupuncture stimulates stem cell production. Well, this is something we've been saying since the beginning of time, right? We call it Jing. It's something
Yeah.
else, right? Or we talk about, various things to do with
Mhm.
regulating the nervous system that Chinese medicine talks about as the precursor to health. Well, that's what the vagus nerve is all about, right? So it's like all of these things have been very well established for a really long time in TCM. So to me, that is the greatest evidence that they work. And the biggest pushback is always that we don't have the same types of
Mhm.
randomized
Right,
controlled
control.
trials, right, that Western medicine has. And while I would push back against that and say there's a great deal of data being collected right now contemporaneously about the benefits of TCM, but also that the way that evidence-based medicine works in the West is it is appropriate, but it's very binary, right? This works or it did not work. And because Chinese medicine is individualized and we
Yep.
are treating people based on how they present that day, or we can tweak a formulation to take somebody from a sore throat to a fever, like fix those two things in one change of a formula. It's not the same. You can't give everyone the same protocol and expect it to work, right? It's different.
Yeah.
So to me, that's one of the greatest challenges that we have to sort of prove ourselves, I guess, if you will, from a Chinese medicine standpoint, because you can't always say this type of research structure works in Chinese medicine, but that doesn't mean Chinese medicine doesn't work.
Yeah.
And so that's where I think there's a lot of education that's still missing on the science side of things, but it's getting better. In fertility medicine and my specialty, there's a lot of data around PCOS, endometriosis, IVF, um, breech babies, all kinds of things in pregnancy. So we are trying to get more data, more human trials, and that's where the profession I hope will go.
Yeah, that's amazing because I was just hearing what you were saying. It's yeah, it's extremely individualized. I grew up with Chinese medicine, so it's always like I remember my doctor would be adjusting my herbs based on exactly what you said, based on how your chi is like today. Like,
Right.
and tomorrow it'll be different. The next recipe will be really different. So it's
Right.
like a highly adjustable versus okay, if you're being prescribed to a blood pressure medication or you by diabetes medication, you just take the same thing over and over again. So it's
Right.
like so different.
Right. It's very different, and we're not always getting even the exact same. We're not always looking for the exact same outcome. Like I might be
Mhm.
hoping that this formula is going to help one person um break a fever, and I'm helping another person that using that same formula who has postpartum depression.
Mhm.
I can't explain that very well to, a Western pharmacologist, but other than I can explain energetically why those two things might have
It
something in
works.
common or why it worked. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's
kind of
it's
wild.
so cool. So today we're talking about foods for fertility, and then in your opinion, why are patients' diets so critical for a healthy pregnancy and baby?
I mean, it is the most fundamental thing that we need to have enough resources in our bodies to support a pregnancy. And it's not because the body can't necessarily carry the pregnancy, it's that it will carry the pregnancy at our own expense. And
Mm,
that is what we do not want. And then you run into all kinds of other problems downstream. There's only so many of our resources that we can give away before we become too depleted to function or to be fertile or carry a baby. So the way that I look at it in my practice, whether it's like with my coaching clients or in person, it doesn't have to be acupuncture, but it should be a 3 month cycle or period of time that sometimes is referred to as the zero trimester or the conscious conception phase, which is, like I said, a minimum of 3 months. And that time is about repleting your body of anything it might be devoid of, including sleep, including adequate, sufficient movement, including, minerals and nutrients that maybe you're not eating. So stabilizing the diet. And probably most importantly, learning to stabilize blood sugar and keep blood sugar levels within a normal range throughout the day so that people learn not to be eating in ways that create these massive glucose spikes and drops, because that is one of the main things that can influence hormonal
mhm,
fluctuations. So, food is so important, not just what we eat, but how we eat. Like learning, women have been subjected to diet culture their whole lives. They've been told they're always being told they're eating too much. They're always being told they're eating too often. And in reality, we need to be eating 3 meals a day at regular intervals and maybe even a couple of snacks. We don't have to eat excessive amounts of calories or really crazy calorie dense meals, but we need to be eating protein and fat and some type of, you know, carbohydrate, vegetables, usually every meal. And getting in that habit of doing that and starting to train the body from a TCM standpoint is actually what we would refer to as regulating the spleen. And the spleen is
mm,
really the entire microbiome in its role of assimilating what we eat, not
mhm,
and what we think and everything that we assimilate. But when it comes to nutrition, the first thing is how do we stabilize our digestive system so the foods we eat are properly absorbed into our
mhm,
bloodstreams, so our bodies are able to take that nutrition and store it for the future or use it in the present moment. How are we eating in ways that minimize the inflammation that our bodies are encountering after every meal? And then what else are we doing in our lives to kind of maintain that level of low inflammation and good nutritional reserves, as well as just a regular steady pattern of eating?
mhm. And then when it comes to like nutritious food, or like why are you such a proponent of berries when
Yeah.
when trying to conceive?
So berries are kind of considered like a little powerhouse in the conception realm, primarily because they're very rich in antioxidants. And antioxidants are one of the key nutrients for reducing oxidative stress, right? It's antioxidative stress. And oxidative stress is just what happens in our bodies normally from day to day living with the breakdown of, you know, food nutrients that we eat and just anything that we encounter as the body breaks it down, there's going to be some oxidative stress. Antioxidants help to combat that. So berries are because of their deep purple, red, like the color of berries tells you that that's where those antioxidants are going to be in high numbers. We don't have a ton of berries in the Chinese medicine, materia medica. The main one that we use is goji berry,
Goji berry. I
which is
love goji berry.
wonderful, and it's what we would call a kidney liver tonic. It nourishes the kidney jing, so it's supportive for preconception of like kind of think of it as like supporting the DNA health of the eggs and the sperm. So we use that a lot in Chinese herbal medicine, but with my patients, I honestly just think they get great benefit from just rotating through, blackberries, raspberries, blueberries, and strawberries. And acai berries are a good extra bonus too. There's actually some data on acai berries for fertility. And I think again, because it's just a very, very high antioxidant level in acai berries, you can, if you look at them, they're like the darkest purple berries out there. So those are also really useful. They can be taken in like even a powder form. So I think that berries are great. They're also low glycemic, and I'm always encouraging my patients not to have too much sugar in their diets, or like we just discussed, to be thoughtful about not spiking their sugar. So you can have, berries and Greek yogurt and a little honey, and it tastes like a satisfying treat, but it's actually very stabilizing to the blood sugar. It's rich in antioxidants, and it's giving you lots of good chi from that honey as well. So that's a really healthy example of a snack compared to, I don't know, a bowl of cereal. Um, so berries are, and also for, for men, berries are just as important for sperm health. And because men are creating sperm all the time, the number one ingredient in a male prenatal supplement is antioxidants. So you can get most of that just by eating berries.
I think when a lot of people are thinking about eating berry or eating any fruits, that they think about like a really nice smoothie and they put a bunch of ice and other things in it. I know you have like an interesting tip about limiting cold food during this window. Why is that? I know exactly why, but I was like,
You
okay, I
know
would
why?
love
I was
to
like,
hear.
oh, I
Yeah,
know where this is
I love
going.
you to explain it. I
So
often tell my friends that, and then they all think I'm crazy, right?
they think you're crazy. Yeah, I get it. Everyone thinks I'm crazy too. It's okay. Yeah. So in Chinese medicine, there is a general principle that we avoid eating foods that are too cold. And this is especially true when we're trying to conceive, and really just more true for women in general, because women tend to physiologically be colder than men until menopause, and then that's a whole other story. You can have all the smoothies you want then, but in our in our fertile years where we're trying to conceive, I kind of liken it to the notion of like you're a chicken sitting on your eggs, you're roosting, your body needs to be warm. In addition to that, cold is constricting by nature. If I put ice on something, it will tighten. If I put heat on something, it will open up, right? And more blood flow will come to it. So by increasing warm foods in my body, I'm making it easier for my body to actually assimilate and digest the nutrients. So I am going to get a lot more benefit from drinking a cup of bone broth that I scramble an egg into in the morning than I'm going to get from a cold smoothie that has ice and berries and bananas. That doesn't mean berries and bananas are a bad choice, or even that having it cold is a impossible thing. If it's the thing that you love and you're like, you are psycho, I will never give up my morning smoothie, then I would say you can do two things to really help out your digestion. One, drink a cup of warm ginger or cinnamon tea while you're drinking your smoothie so that you are kind of neutralizing that cold in your belly. Alternate sips, or every few sips, keep it warm, or drink it at room temperature. Leave it out and just drink it at room temp. So you're just avoiding taking in something that's super ice freezing cold and then just walking around that way. And then, because then what happens is your stomach what we always say the stomach yang, the energy of the stomach gets affected. It has to bring everything up to body temperature. So if you're drinking a 40-degree smoothie, your body is going to need to warm that up to 98 degrees. That takes a lot of chi. It takes extra effort and it's constricting in the stomach. So for people who are more prone to having stomach pain or digestive or intestinal cramping or that sort of thing, then the warmer stuff is just easier on the system and easier for our bodies to take in. And the last thing I would say about that is I will also sometimes use the metaphor of like you wouldn't give a baby a cold bottle of milk out of the fridge, right? And you just wouldn't. That would be weird. Um, or you wouldn't do it on deliberately, right? You want it to be warm because you know for the baby that feels nicer, it feels better, it's more soothing to drink something warm. And part of nurturing yourself is soothing yourself. And we have to stop just running around chugging iced coffee all day long and thinking that like I'm good, I'm nurturing myself, right? So even just stopping to sit and drink a warm cup of soup, or hot tea and just slow down. That's an act of self nurturing as opposed to throwing your freezing smoothie in your Stanley cup on your way to hot yoga.
I don't wait yoga. But I also think that's a really good tip. Mix the cinnamon or ginger tea. I think the hardest thing for me is I already, I know all the principles and I already don't drink a lot of cold stuff. My hardest one is ice cream. Sometimes you want a little bit of treat and then you want that ice cream, but then it's
I would
cold, right?
never
Like,
I would never tell someone not to have a little bit of ice cream. I wouldn't. I think ice cream is a health food. You can't.
yeah, I love ice cream, but next time I'm gonna remember your tip. When I'm having my ice cream, I'm gonna have a cup of ginger cinnamon tea next to me, and I'm eating
Or,
my
or
ice cream.
have a little ice cream after a delicious warm meal that
Mhm.
it's like your digestion's already going at that point and it's warm in there already. So a little ice cream at that point is not the end of the world. Waking up in the morning and eating a pint of ice cream would not be great. You know what I mean? It's like it's all about balance. It's all about where where do I find the ways to take care of myself the best? But that really does include um taking care of yourself around the things that are fun and feel good too, not just around the things that are, it's not about rigidity. That doesn't get you anywhere because that just leads to a backlash as well. So that's why, like I said, if someone says, I will, you'll have to pry those cold smoothies out of my cold, dead hands, I'm like, I'm not gonna keep drinking your smoothie. How about we just do some tea with it, right? Or if somebody says ice cream is my favorite thing and I have to have it, okay. Just wait till after dinner and make sure you be eating plenty of protein first. Like, okay, there's a way. There's a way to live. There's a way to go about this where you don't feel deprived and resentful, especially around trying to conceive because the process is already so hard.
Right, absolutely. We're big fans of teas at Melon Marker, but then we're trying to tell people to use the loose tea leaves to avoid the microplastic in tea bags.
Yeah,
So, what
yeah.
are your favorite herbs, tea for fertility, and why?
For fertility, like herbs that people can buy at the grocery store, my favorites are things like nettle leaf, which is really nutrient dense. It's got a lot of vitamin C and iron in it. I love rose, like little baby rose. We make waha in Chinese medicine, like
Hmm.
little baby roses. You can also use rose petals, slightly different, but they're both high in vitamin C and just really like soothing for they're great for things like anxiety or feeling kind of on edge. Um, I I mean personally, I love all the mint teas, but you have to in TCM, we everything has a temperature. So mint is on the colder side, whereas cinnamon is on the warmer side of that spectrum. So you just want to be aware, if you're always wanting mint tea, is it because there's a little too much heat in the system, or make sure that you're not creating any depletion by drinking something that's too cold. Um, so, that's something that I would more recommend if someone's feeling nauseated or they're feeling really, bloated after treatment or IVF retrieval or something. Things like mint tea can feel really good at a time like that. But for fertility, honestly, I love when there's a baseline like something like nettle leaf, which is so nutrient dense, and then kind of pick and choose the things that feel good or taste good beyond that. So chamomile tea or hibiscus tea or but I think that one thing that it's important for people to understand, because I get asked this all the time, because doctors have these lists like, don't drink chamomile tea, you'll have a miscarriage. I'm like, no, no. You would have to like literally drink gallons and gallons of chamomile tea. Like, we have to be aware that th- buying some loose leaf teas and having a teaspoon or two of that a day is not going to reach a therapeutic effect in the body to the point where it's going to harm your pregnancy or create any significant change in either direction. This is just like, not, that's not to say that some chamomile tea might not help you sleep well, or that some mint tea might not help your stomach ache a little bit, right? But it we're not going to harm ourselves using herbal tea that you buy at the store unless you are going so far overboard that you are just consuming massive and massive amounts of that stuff. So that's, I guess, I would just say that's my main thing about any kind of self-prescribing of tea. Self-prescribing of Chinese herbs is not a good idea, because you can't hit yourself that way. But self-prescribing of teas for various kind of like over-the-counter ailments, whatever feels good to you, you're not going to consume enough to do yourself any harm, is I think my main takeaway there.
And then when it comes to other foods, like what other foods would you recommend for someone who's looking to enhance their body for conception?
So this is going to be my favorite one, and it will either make people be like, "Ugh," or they'll remember. Liver. Liver. Liver is, I remember growing up that my grandmother like ate liver at least a couple times a week. She ate liverwurst sandwiches. She would cook liver for us. I never was so into that. But I did, as I started researching nutrition more and learning about, what kinds of nutrients we need to be repleting our systems with for fertility, really became clear that one of the big things that happened as we shifted out of home cooking in the 50s and more into this like highly processed food land of the 60s and 70s is that we cut the organ meats out of our diets. And it's like I talk about this in Future Fertility. How did your great grandmother eat? How did your grandmother eat? Those are the most likely the foods that are most assimilatable for your genetics and that are most likely not highly processed. So if we all jump back a couple generations and look, what are the things that were being consumed readily by my ancestors? Those are the things that are, if you're not eating them today, quite possibly creating a hole in your diet, in your nutrition. And I think that organ meats is one of those places where it's really, really significant, especially in the US, where we are just repulsed by, for the most part, things like, liver, kidney, whatever other organ meats that are commonly consumed around the world. I mean, most of my family is in Great Britain. When last time I was there, they were eating chicken livers for dinner, and there's steak and kidney pie all over the place. It's not actually considered so off-putting in other Western cultures, let alone, other Eastern cultures. And so I think that it's something we need to take a look at when it comes to the need to replete our bodies with sufficient nutrients. Liver has all of the B vitamins. It has all kinds of, minerals. It has the best food source of copper. It is genuinely almost like a bioavailable multivitamin, because it has all the spectrum of human nutrients that we actually need and require. So I will often recommend people use like a desiccated liver supplement if they don't want to consume liver. And if they're okay with it, to just start exploring a little bit, chicken liver pate on crackers is really delicious. So that's an example of an important fertility food for enhancing, again, what we would call in Chinese medicine kidney jing. And what we're talking about there is your body's capacity for reproduction, the health and stamina of your body. What is the mitochondria like? what is the actual DNA makeup of your little tiny eggs or the little tiny sperm? Does it have the energy to do the thing to reproduce? And if it doesn't, then foods like liver, actually, fish roe is another example of a food that we would use in that same category, trying to really bring tremendous nutrient dense foods into the body. So the body is like, oh my gosh, I have so much of this. I'm gonna store it up.
I think oftentimes people don't know where to buy the organ meat, but I think that there are sources. If you can just Google the internet, and then if you buy, grass fed like beef liver, I don't know, like
Oh yes,
special pig
definitely.
liver or chicken, you can definitely find it.
Yes, you definitely can, whether it's through one of the online, butchers that are doing the, high. I Tuesday, and I agree with you. I didn't really mention that. I think it's important when we're eating organ meats that we try to find it from pasture raised sources,
Pasturist.
or organic pasture raised sources as much as possible. But people should just eat what they can access without feeling guilty about
Yeah.
that either,
Yep.
because the food itself is what's most important.
Yep.
But when you can access the higher quality sources, I think it's for organ meats in particular, that's a good idea.
Mhm. Okay, tell us about your book, Feed Your Fertility, and what can we expect?
So Feed Your Fertility is a book that was published in 2015. So of course I'm ready to rewrite the whole thing and start over. It's been a decade. But Feed Your Fertility is a book that is really about looking at both Chinese medicine and Western medicine. What are some of the specific things that come up around fertility, and how would the Western perspective look at it and treat it, and then how would the Eastern perspective look at it and treat it? So that's kind of a big chunk of the book, and then the second part of the book are lots of different recipes and ways to actually feed your fertility. But there are things in there that, in full disclosure, I would maybe change a little bit today. Like 10 years ago, we were talking about raw milk, and today I do not advise that people eat raw milk or consume raw milk, just because I think that the climate around that has become a bit precarious. Um, and yeah, there's just like a few little things in there that have been updated over time. But all in all, I think the book stands, and certainly in terms of the conversation about what the Eastern perspective versus what the Western perspective would be for anyone who's struggling to conceive, I do think that that's a valuable thing to look at, and that it's two different um, medical systems, but we're looking at the same body. We're looking at the same concepts. We're just trying to optimize it or make things work for that individual, perhaps from slightly different perspectives, but not totally disparate angles either.
Mhm. How can someone work with you then?
I work with patients both in my clinic in Los Angeles. I'm in a part of LA called Culver City, a small little
I
municipality.
I love I love Culver City.
Do
I grew up
you?
in Torrance.
Oh my gosh, so you're really close by. Yeah, so I'm in Culver City. That's where my brick and mortar practice is, and it's called Mother Nurture Wellness. And then I do also have an online coaching practice, and you can find that through drlauraerlich.com or through Mother Nurture Wellness. You can get there as well. I've got some group coaching and stuff coming up later this year, but right now I'm working on getting a professional development program off the ground called the Institute. And
Oh,
so I'm
wow.
really excited about that. That's getting started next month.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank
We'd love to invite you back. Well, first, I mean, I feel like through this talk, there's so many things we can talk about. One is more in depth about feed your fertility. I feel like
Sure.
different topics you have covered in that book, we could totally talk more. And then the second is you also mentioned that how you would approach menopause is really different. Because I think we started getting more and more people interested in the menopause. That's also a
Absolutely.
huge, like a huge gap between the Western perspective versus Eastern perspective, TCM perspective. So I felt like that's also a knowledge gap people could have. Yeah, I would love to
Yeah,
do
I
that
think
again.
so. I think that's right. And I also think there's been a huge shift around menopause and the Western approach being so much safer now, that people need to understand that as well, because there's still a lot of the old fears around things like hormone replacement
Mhm.
that we can let go of and recognize the benefit of it instead at this point. And sometimes that also is like the wellness side has to come around to accepting the medical facts around that one as well, right? That it's like it's not all bad. Western medicine is not all bad. There's got some good stuff for us. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge. And then would love to have you back again if you have time.
Anytime. Yeah, just reach out. It was great to see you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
My
Bye.
pleasure. Have a great evening.
You too. Bye.
Bye.